up, YouTube? Thank you for clicking on this video if you're new to my channel, or if you're not new to my channel, thanks anyway. But if you are new here, my name is Lynette and I'm a certified personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer for about 3 years now, first in a gym and then doing online training. However, I've been studying and researching personal training, fitness, nutrition, and things of that nature for about 5 years now. I want to start by saying that I am not a nutritionist, I'm not a registered dietitian, I'm not any of those things that would be qualified to make a video like this. I'm simply making this video based off of my experience, my research, things that I know about the subject I'm going to talk about today, which is intermittent fasting. So to start off, a lot of people have asked, what is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting is not a fad diet or a type of diet. It's really just a way of eating the food that you would eat in a day. You can do it if you're doing low carb, you can do it if you're doing Weight Watchers, you can do it if you're counting macros. It really doesn't matter what your type of diet is. Any diet can be doing intermittent fasting. And what intermittent fasting basically is when you fast for a certain portion of the day, as in you don't eat anything, and then you have a short eating window in which you do eat your meals. For example, let's say you fast until 12 o'clock every day, and then you eat from 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, not continuously, but like that's the window in which you eat all of your calories for the day. And then at 8 o'clock you stop eating and you fast for the rest of the day. So that's basically what it is just fasting part of the day and confining all of your meals to a certain time frame of eating. A lot of people have asked me, how long is your eating window supposed to be, or how long are you supposed to be fasting? And it's kind of arbitrary. Some people fast for 12 hours, some people fast for 16 hours, some people fast for even longer than that. The most typical window that I see is 16 hours fasting, 8 hours eating, fasting from 8 o'clock at night until say 12 o'clock the next day. That's the most common that I see, not necessarily in those time frames, but the 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window. But I have seen people do a 18-hour fast and a 6-hour eating window, or even a 20-hour fast and a 4-hour eating window. There's not one right or wrong way to do it. It's all intermittent fasting. It's just whatever you decide you want to do. So the reason that people have started doing intermittent fasting is for a couple of sciencey reasons and then a couple of just preference, lifestyle, adherence reasons. Now I'll give you the sciencey reasons as to why people think intermittent fasting is great, or like even perhaps more ideal for losing weight than other ways of dieting, but I'm gonna just tell you up front, I don't really buy it. For every reason that I'm about to give you, you'll find one article online that says, yes, that's true, and then you'll find another article online that says, no, that's not true. And for every reason I'm about to give you, you'll find one study that says, yes, for sure, and then another study that says, not really. So basically all I'm saying is that this issue, in my opinion, from my research, does not seem cut and dry, in that it's extremely way more beneficial than any other method of dieting, or that it's like not great. You have to do your own research and come to your own conclusion. I'm just going to present the facts that I've heard to you with a little bit of my opinion. This is my channel, after all. I can't help it. So basically, when you're in a state of fasting, your insulin levels are a little bit lower. When insulin levels are lower in our body, technically we're burning more fat than we are storing fat. Technically. Also, by being in a state of fasting, you can technically improve your insulin sensitivity, which is great for reducing your risk of type 2 diabetes, and help lower blood sugar levels, etc., etc. Now, I'm not saying that these things aren't true. I'm just saying that I don't think that intermittent fasting shows a much more significant means of causing these things to happen in your body as opposed to just normal dieting. Insulin levels may be lower when you're in a fasted state, but that doesn't necessarily mean you technically burn fat better. Your body really is in a constant state of both burning and storing fat. So really what's most important, in my opinion, and from what I've researched, is just making sure that you have the right amount of calories in your day for your goal, whether that's to lose weight or to gain weight. As long as your calories are at that right level, it doesn't really matter that much when you eat them. And that's just from my research. Like, I read the studies. It seems like people who did intermittent fasting might have gotten a 2% better result or a 3% better result after a 24-week period or something like that, but it did not seem that significant. I'm just saying. To me, what's more exciting about intermittent fasting is like the lifestyle and adherence benefits. So when you're dieting, calories are often really low, like 1,500, 1,600, sometimes even less for some people. Now, if you start eating at 5 o'clock in the morning when you wake up, and you have to drag those calories out until you go to bed at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, that means you're gonna have like a lot of time being hungry, or just a lot of really tiny meals that are not satisfying or satiating. And that sucks. When you're dieting, like, you're already gonna be hungry when you're dieting, but it sucks even more when you can never really get full or have a big meal that feels satisfying. So with intermittent fasting, if you're fasting until say 12 o'clock in the afternoon and you don't have your first meal until then, and you only have 8 more hours in which you're going to eat, now instead of your 1,500 calories being spread across, 16 waking hours, they're only spread across 8 hours. So technically you could have 3 really big meals that are 500 calories each, or even 2 big meals that are 750 calories each, which obviously is way more satisfying than like a 200 calorie meal every 2.5 hours. So to me, that's the biggest benefit right there, is just not having to be as hungry all day and being able to have those meals that are really satisfying and high calorie. Another benefit that I love about intermittent fasting is that it seems to retrain your hunger cues a little bit. When I'm eating from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed, I'm constantly eating every 2 or 3 hours. My body gets used to eating that often, so it's hungry all the time because it's used to expecting food. A lot of people think that hunger cues only come when our body needs food, but actually our hunger cues come for a lot of other reasons, but primarily they come at times that we're used to eating. So for a person who wakes up at 5 in the morning and goes to bed at 9 at night, who has to eat every 2 or 3 hours, you're constantly training your body to want food every 2 or 3 hours. And so it's almost like you're always hungry. Now with intermittent fasting, for you to be in a fasted state for 16 hours, over time you can train your body to not send out hunger cues during your normal fasted times. It doesn't work for everybody, but when I used intermittent fasting a lot this past school year, I found that from 8 or 9 at night until about 12 o'clock the last day, my stomach really wasn't grumbling, I really wasn't that hungry, and it was because my body was used to not having food at that time. And so then when I hit my eating window from 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night and I got to have 2 or 3 really big meals, it was awesome because first of all, not only was I not hungry for most of the day, so I wasn't feeling like I was suffering, when my time came to eat, I got to eat a bunch of big meals, which were satisfying, and I was able to eat some like higher calorie things that I normally couldn't eat when I'm like dieting. So that's what I love about intermittent fasting. To me, that's the biggest benefit, and really the only reason I ever tell people to try intermittent fasting is just when they're dieting and they're sick of eating a bunch of really little meals, or they're sick of being super hungry all the time. That's when I recommend intermittent fasting, just because it seems to be able to help that for a lot of people. The downside to intermittent fasting can be obviously that it can be really hard for some people to fast for that long. Some people's bodies just don't seem to ever adapt to being without food for 16 hours or however many hours. And so they're actually just so hungry in that fasting period that when the time comes for them to eat in their eating window, they just gorge on food because they were so hungry for so long, they just can't seem to control themselves and they just overeat. Then that obviously defeats the purpose and is not helpful. I also don't recommend intermittent fasting for people who've had issues in the past with eating disorders or binge eating problems, overeating problems, anything like that, because like I said, it can kind of encourage that like all or nothing mindset where you're fasted for so long in the day and then now you have this 8-hour eating window and you just want to go hog wild with food because you're so hungry and you just want to eat. And also sometimes having big meals like a 800 calorie meal or a 1,000 calorie meal can kind of trigger a binge response where you want to feel very, very full. And so now you're not just satisfied with that 800 calorie meal, you go all the way and you want a 2,000 calorie meal. You want to be super, super stuffed because it just triggers that old mindset of having been a binge eater in the past and needing that feeling of fullness to feel satisfied. So yeah, I definitely don't recommend intermittent fasting for anyone who's had an issue like that before, because I've just seen it kind of aggravate that or bring up old habits into your life. So that's just something to be mindful of. A lot of you guys asked if this is something that a person should do long term, and I've always kind of stood by the opinion that I don't think that this is something that a person should do long term or for like their whole life. I think it's helpful when you're in a dieting phase where calories are low and it just helps you feel a little bit more satisfied and not be constantly hungry or thinking about food. But in general, I don't think it's a healthy practice to just have 2 giant meals a day within a few hours of each other. That's not ideal for muscle growth or muscle retention. Definitely not ideal for muscle protein synthesis. And I just don't think that it's a healthy cycle for people to be in, to just be eating giant meals once or twice a day, period. Like that's just the bottom line. For a short period of time as a tool to lose weight, okay. But as like an everyday life practice where you just have 2 giant meals and your blood sugar skyrockets, your insulin level skyrockets because you have 100 grams of sugar in your system at one time, twice in one day, like that's just a million reasons why that just feels wrong to me. Now, one way to kind of go in between like doing true intermittent fasting versus like regular eating all day is having that 6 or 8 or 10-hour eating window, but outside of that, instead of just fasting, do some protein doses throughout the day. I used to do this sometimes when I was in school where I needed some energy before I ate at 12 o'clock. So I would wake up at 5 o'clock and have some egg whites, which is just pure protein. And then a few hours later, I'd have a protein shake, which again is just pure protein. And then I wouldn't have my real first meal until 12 o'clock. So not only is this more ideal for muscle retention, muscle protein synthesis, but it also kind of still is like you're fasting, because what tends to make people feel hungry and get their metabolism kind of revved up is eating carbs and fat, especially carbs. Carbs make you hungrier a lot of the time for a number of sciencey reasons we're not going to go into. But yeah, that's one thing that you can do if you really would like to save the bulk of your calories for a certain eating window, but you just can't get through the whole day without something. Having those little doses of protein are going to, first of all, in my opinion, help your results long term in terms of muscle retention or building muscle, but it's also going to like give you a little bit of something to go off of so that you're not totally fasted in a 16-hour window. And so one thing that you guys have asked a lot is, do you break your fast after you've worked out? My answer to that is that you don't have to wait until your workout to break your fast. Like if you work out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you don't have to wait until after that to break your fast. You can break your fast at 12 if you'd like, but I will say that once you have worked out, you need to break your fast. So whether you work out at 8 o'clock in the morning or you work out at 12 o'clock o'clock in the afternoon, whatever, the latest possible time you can break your fast, the time that you need to start eating is after your workout. Please do not work out and then not eat for 3 or 4 hours. You need to refuel, you need to get some protein into your system, you need to get carbs into your system to recover. You must eat after your workout. Please, for the love of God, eat after your workout. A lot of you guys asked, is intermittent fasting beneficial if you're only doing it 3 or 4 times a week? Now, if you're just focused on the sciencey benefits, maybe doing intermittent fasting 3 or 4 times a week isn't quite as beneficial because it's not like a day-to-day, everyday thing that your body can adapt to. But in terms of just giving yourself a few days a week where your meals are bigger because your eating window is smaller, then go for it. I do it all the time, probably 2 or 3 days a week that I actually like get a chance to sleep in a little bit and push off my workout until 11 or 12 o'clock. On those days, yeah, I don't start eating until 12 or 1 o'clock at least. And it's awesome. And I reap the benefit of having large meals on those days. So yes, you can do it 3 or 4 times a week or 1 day a week. It doesn't really matter. It's not something that you have to stick with and continually stick with in order to get the benefits, because to me the benefits can be as small as the confinement of 1 day. So to wrap this video up, basically I want to say that at the end of the day, whether you decide to do intermittent fasting or you decide to eat the normal every 2 or 3 hours starting when you wake up until you go to bed, what you should do is what you're most likely to comply with, what's easier for you to adhere to. Because even if intermittent fasting does get that 2% better result or that 3% better result, it's not going to get that result if you can't stick to it. If every time you try to fast for 16 hours, you end up blowing your diet because you're so hungry, then obviously intermittent fasting is not gonna work. You're not gonna lose weight. You may gain weight. So if you're somebody who has to eat when you wake up and you cannot go to bed hungry, homie, I really do not recommend intermittent fasting for you. I say this time and time again to my clients, but the best diet is the one that you adhere to. Whether that's Weight Watchers or low carb or intermittent fasting or whatever it is that you can actually stick to get the result that you're looking for, that's the one that you should stick with. So yes, thank you guys for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you in some way. If it was, give it a thumbs up. And I will be back with another informative video, I think about binge eating within the next couple of weeks. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. All right, thanks again, guys.